Hello, I'm Catherine Cox. I am one of the tutor trainers, and I have been with the Literacy Council in a lot of different capacities since, I don't know, for more than 15 years.
And I'm Carolyn Gaver. I've been volunteering with the council since 1975 in also many capacities, including being a tutor trainer. So, fluency is a key part of reading instruction. For confident readers, it is a skill they use automatically. However, students who find it difficult to read fluently often avoid reading altogether because it takes a lot of energy and can result in frustration. Fortunately, fluency is a skill that can be taught and practiced at any level. Reading fluently feels and sounds like conversation. The natural pace allows us to more easily make connections between listening vocabulary and written text. When we read fluently, we can concentrate on understanding what we're reading rather than on the smaller pieces of the language. So this is how fluency improves comprehension. Generally, the more you read, the more fluent you become. Some students learn to read fluently without explicit instruction, but for others, fluency doesn't develop naturally. They continue to read word by word and do not get the complete meaning. These students need to be encouraged to group words into phrases and sentences as they read. While the word fluency refers to both oral and silent reading, you can best assess your students' fluency skills when they're reading out loud. For this reason, we teach reading fluency using oral reading techniques and practice activities. In this topic, we'll talk about the skills needed to become a fluent reader, how to choose fluency materials, who needs fluency instruction, some strategies to use for improving fluency, and where fluency instruction belongs in a lesson. Fluency has three components: speed, accuracy, and expressiveness. When reading aloud, fluent readers read in phrases and add expression and intonation. Intonation is the rise and fall of the voice when speaking. Stress, rhythm, and intonation are all parts of expressiveness. When someone reads aloud fluently, it sounds very much like ordinary speech. Fluency improves comprehension in two ways. First, fluent readers recognize words automatically without having to decode each word in a phrase. Secondly, fluent readers are able to create the appropriate emphasis, rhythm, and inflection, which may not be apparent in printed text. Both of these contribute to improved comprehension. Reading aloud makes it easy for students to hear themselves getting better, and this increases their self-confidence as readers.
Guided oral reading techniques take advantage of repetitive readings with guidance from a teacher or coach. There are several different ways to do this. Research shows that these guided reading techniques are one of the best ways to improve fluency. Let's look at 4 guided oral reading techniques to give you an idea of what you can do to help your student become a fluent reader. These techniques are modeled reading, echo reading, choral reading, and duet reading. After learning about these activities, you can decide which ones would best help your student. The first technique, modeled reading, is basically reading aloud. When parents read to their children, they are modeling reading. This slide summarizes a basic modeled reading activity. Students should have a copy of what you're reading so they can follow along with their eyes. The text can be at a slightly higher level than you would normally use, but students still need to be able to follow along easily. Modeled reading teaches word recognition in a meaningful context. It demonstrates correct phrasing instead of word-by-word reading and gives students practice tracking across the page. In addition to reading aloud during your lesson, you can also record yourself reading so your student can practice listening and following along outside of class. You can send or post them the digital recording. In this video, the tutor uses echo reading, the second technique, with a basic literacy learner. Let's see it.
You'll now watch a learner and a tutor practicing two guided, repeated, oral reading strategies at the same time. Echo reading, in which the tutor models reading a passage and the learner repeats the passage, and cross-generational reading, where the learner prepares to read to a child. Echo reading is particularly effective for improving a reader's phrasing and expression. Any text can be used with this strategy, but since one of the learner's goals is to read to her granddaughter, this pair is using a children's book for this lesson. Unless your learner has a similar goal, you'll use materials of interest to adults.
This time's a little different from what we did, and you might love it. What we're going to do is called echo reading. And so an echo is like, I'll read it, and I'm modeling for you, just like when we do it together,
Okay.
but you're listening.
Okay.
And then you read it, and I'm listening. Okay. And then we'll just take turns. So we're going to each read the same sentence and then move on. And we'll do that 3 times, and then you'll try it on your own straight through. Okay. So this time's my turn. You're just listening. Then you're going to follow right after me and read the same sentence. Grandpa taught us that good manners are very important. Your turn.
Oh, Grandpa, I thought you was gonna read the whole page.
We're going to do
Okay.
it sentence by sentence. Mhm.
Grandpa taught us that good manners are very important.
So today I said, good morning to the first ant I saw.
So today I said good morning to the first ant I saw.
There were 600 more of them in line.
There were 600 more of them in line.
I stood there all day.
I stood there all day.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. Okay, let's
Oh
try
my
that again.
God.
Okay. Grandpa taught us that good manners are very important.
Grandpa taught us good manners are important.
Very important.
Very important.
So today I said good morning to the first ant I saw.
So today I said good morning to the first ant I saw.
There were 600 more of them in line.
There was 600 more of them in line.
I stood there all day.
I stood there all day.
I love this book. Okay. I love Grandpa with his hat. Grandpa taught us that good manners are very important.
Grandpa taught us that good manners are very important.
So today I said good morning to the first ant I saw.
So today I said good morning to the first ant I saw.
There were 600 more of them in line.
There were 600 more of them in line.
I stood there all day.
I stood there all day.
Okay. Does it feel easier than the first time?
Yeah.
Okay. It's cute, huh? All right. So this time you're going to read it straight through from top to bottom.
Okay. Grandpa taught us that good manners are very important. So today I said good morning to the first ant I saw. There were 600 more of them in line. I stood there all day.
How did that one feel?
Good.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Did you enjoy it? I mean, that was fun. Just for me, it was fun. But do you think that was more helpful than the other 2 types we did, where you read to me and we
I
read
still
together?
like the first one
You
better.
still like the first one?
Yeah, this seems more competitive. Or I'm not competitive, that's not a good word. It seems more redundant.
Oh, redundant.
Mhm. Mhm.
I can certainly see why, because then you're hearing it like twice as many times out loud. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh,
Mhm.
it's good feedback. Okay. That's interesting.
It's important to practice each guided, repeated, oral reading strategy by having your learner read the passage out loud at least 3 times. Provide guidance for how to improve fluency by assisting your learner when needed and modeling accurate, well-paced reading with appropriate phrasing and expression. The goal is for your learner to read as fluently as she speaks. You've seen a tutor do quite a bit of talking when explaining a new strategy. During most lessons, you and your learner would be equally talkative.
Now, let's focus on some key aspects of this video, which I really love. You probably noticed that the tutor moved her finger along the words to help the student read more fluently rather than word by word. Phrasing helps with both fluency and also comprehension. Run your finger under several words at a time as you read, pausing very briefly, and then move on to the next phrase. This helps the student read several words at a time and absorb their meaning instead of trying to understand the whole sentence at once. You may have also noticed that the tutor increased the speed of her reading each time she read the text. This challenges the student and also models natural phrasing and expression. And of course, at the end, the tutor showed that she valued the student's input by asking which activities she liked best. So here's the steps to follow when practicing echo reading with your student, as you just saw in the video. You can use this technique whether you're meeting face-to-face or remotely. If you're presenting your lesson online, you and your student will both see the shared text, and you can move the pointer under the phrases instead of your finger. A variation of echo reading is to record yourself reading the material and send it to your student to practice outside of class. So we'll just give you a moment to look at those steps. While echo and modeled reading involve reading to students, choral reading is reading aloud in unison with students. Because your student is reading with you, the passage should be at the student's independent reading level. During choral reading, when the student is reading confidently, the tutor can just stop reading and listen. But if the student stumbles over a word or slows down too much, the tutor should quickly provide them the difficult word and start reading aloud with the student again. So what kind of materials can you use to teach fluency? Well, you could use part of a reading passage from the student's current lesson or some other text of interest to your student, such as the news or work documents or very short stories. Generally, we recommend that you practice these techniques at the very end of the structured lesson, after your student understands and is familiar with the text.
The fourth technique, duet reading, is a little different because you use text that is new to the student. The tutor and student read the text aloud together. The tutor reads at a normal speed, trying to use expression and following punctuation. The student reads along, trying to keep up with the tutor. This technique helps them read faster and with more confidence. Duet reading is especially helpful with students who have some reading ability, but who are reading hesitantly, word by word, or with no expression. Now let's do some duet reading together. Begin reading the next slide aloud, along with me, starting with the title as soon as we show the slide. It's important that you read it aloud. Don't try to study or analyze the text when you see it. Just start reading. The pointer will follow the text as you would with your finger when teaching a student in person. Don't get discouraged if you can't keep up. Just come along for the ride and jump back in when you can. So now, let's read. Facial expressions and head movements. Can you tell how someone feels about you by reading body language? Authorities claim you can, from the look of scorn, however fleeting, to the subtle nods and bright eyes that say someone is receptive to your thoughts. Katie, 17, says, "My friend's mother doesn't like me. I know she doesn't. I asked Katie why she thought this. Well, for one thing, she doesn't look at me when I talk to her, Katie explained. She looks away toward the door or across the room as though she wants to escape. And sometimes she looks at me as if to say, "You look funny in those clothes." I guess it's the way her eyes look cold and her lips are pressed together. She doesn't need to say one negative word to me. The mother's body language had sent a message loud and clear. You may have found this activity a bit confusing, maybe frustrating, and maybe tiring. It probably took a lot of concentration, and maybe you couldn't pay attention to what you were reading. It may have helped to know that it was okay if you couldn't keep up. Of course, you'll use correctly spelled material with your student, but this gives you an idea of what it's like from the student's perspective, and you could probably tell that you improved as you went along. Now we'll look at the mechanics of using duet reading. In duet reading, select a reading passage on a topic that is of interest to the student and is a couple of levels above the student's reading level, but not so difficult that the student becomes too frustrated. Unlike the other fluency exercises, it's very important to use something the student hasn't read before, as the purpose of this exercise is to push the student a little, kind of like resistance training with weights to build more muscle. Tell the student it's okay if they can't always keep up, and then you won't ask any questions. The purpose is to recognize words quickly and try to keep up. Follow these steps. Begin by reading aloud together at a normal pace using expression. Move your finger or pointer under the words from left to right to help the student keep their place. The student should move their own finger if you are reading from separate copies. You should continue to read at a normal rate, even if your student hesitates over a word or falls slightly behind. After a few sessions, your student will begin to look ahead at coming words to keep from falling behind and will keep up more easily. Unlike choral reading, where the tutor might stop reading to listen to a student who is reading confidently, in duet reading, the tutor will stop reading only if the student completely stops reading. In that case, you should also stop, take a break, offer encouragement, and begin again. You want to do this activity for no more than 5 or 10 minutes since it is tiring. If your student keeps up easily, use harder material the next time. If they have a lot of difficulty, select something easier. If you want to provide an appropriate challenge, but not overwhelm your student.
This activity and the next one emphasize how emotion and meaning are conveyed in fluent reading. It's important to mix longer, more rigorous activities with shorter activities and games like these. And mixing it up also makes the lessons more fun for both you and your student. Say it like you mean it. Show students how meaning changes depending on what you emphasize when you read a sentence. The sentence in the box on the slide is a good one for this kind of activity, and you can make up others. Depending on the emphasis, the 7-word sentence could have 7 different meanings. For example, I never said you hit my car. 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 You can see how the meaning changes depending upon which word is emphasized. Roll it is another fun way to practice expressiveness while reading. You can select sentences from the student's reading material or make up your own. First, you choose 6 sentences, like the ones on the left, and 6 different emotions, like the ones in the box on the right. You then roll a die, and you can do this in person, and you and your student can take turns, or certainly you can roll a die online. So you roll a die to select which sentence to read, and then roll it again to determine how you're going to read it. You and your student can alternate until you've read all of the sentence in a variety of ways. And let's say I rolled a 5 first, and then I rolled a 4. So I will say that sentence in a shocked tone of voice. What are you doing? Or if I'd rolled a 6, what are you doing? There are 2 basic fluency rules. First, you should practice fluency after your student has already read the passage and you've checked for comprehension. At that point, your student has reviewed the vocabulary several times and is more familiar with the passage. This sets them up to success, which is always or almost always a good thing. The exception to this is with duet reading, when they're reading texts they've never seen before. Second, very important, do not practice other things at the same time. Do not ask comprehension questions or ask your student to stop and decode a word. Reading fluently takes all of a student's concentration. Comprehension usually does improve with more fluency, as we've said, but you're not working on fluency and comprehension at the same time.